Okay, this video is going to be called How to Climb Success Mountain, or it's going to be called The Scholar's Journey. Both names will make sense. And I'm going to tie in some other famous paintings and philosophy. So this painting, I love this painting by John Martin, the English painter. It's called Prometheus Climbing Mount Olympus. And there's another name for it. It can also be called Sadak in Search of the Waters of Forgetting. But Prometheus Climbing Mount Olympus is better. When Prometheus, the ancient Greek immortal, climbed up Mount Olympus to steal fire from Zeus to give it to the mortals, okay? And you get this idea of a tenacious struggle to overcome obstacles. Okay, the next here is a drawing I one time made about the difference between the average patient and the rare patients who cure themselves of obesity, hypertension, diabetes, and coronary heart disease. The typical chumps is like begging others to save me. They don't do any reading. They don't ever try to learn things. They're not willing to change. Whereas a smart person says, well, gee, the people on drugs never get better. The ones who go low-fat vegan, they're all cured 100%. So I think I'll do that, okay? That's intelligence. So what it means is continuing to try to learn something so you can figure out how to succeed in your field. And this is what I meant by Success Mountain. I just had this idea and I made this drawing. So basically, here's you, and you're trying to climb the mountains of success in your field of endeavor, whatever it may be. And you have to hang on to a rope because it's pretty steep to get up there. You know, you're headed towards your cross. Lead me to the cross, okay? And right next to you is this rapid river flowing downhill from the mountain. And if you get knocked into the river, you better hang on to that rope tighter. You're going to get blown all the way down to the bottom and have to start all over, so to speak. And what I've noticed in life is when you're trying to pursue a goal, if you're lucky, a few people will help you. Most will ignore you. But there's a lot of people that will try to just knock you over. You know, like for my YouTube channel, I got all these trolls and bots. Corporations are always putting big money into promoting lies because that's how they make their money. They'll tell you that nuts and seeds and avocados and soy and MSG and all this other garbage, coffee and tea are good for you because they make a lot of money from it. So, and they just flood the internet with false information. So you're up against the corporations. You're up against the trolls. You're up against people who are jealous of you. You're up against people who are evil. You know, some people just hate you for whatever you are. Like, you know, I'm like, you know, I come from all the losers, okay? I come from the Irish. They've been slaves to the British for 1,000 years, and now they're being you-know-what sided, okay? I have the Puerto Ricans. They were just, you know, little paltry peasant slaves to the USA, okay? And then, you know, I got some connection with Polish people, and they're a bunch of, you know, pawns getting their butt kicked by the Russians and the Germans. So what I'm trying to say is I come from all the weak groups, okay? So I don't have any powerful allies to help me, none, okay? And then there's a lot of powerful people, you know, or other ethnic groups that stick together. They're all just knock you down. Also, I'm a Christian. I'm proud to be a Christian because almost all the great achievement in the world, over 95% of it comes from Christians. So I'm proud to be with the historical team that's done the most great for mankind. But a lot of people hate Christians. They'll obstruct me. I've had my path to achievement obstructed many times for a lot of these different reasons. Competitors, that's just part of life, having competition. Big tech doesn't want the little guy, the peasant, to succeed. So what I'm trying to say is you need strong goals that keep you hanging onto that rope, that keep you trying to climb the mountain. Because if you don't have these strong goals and this faith, this idea of it's your destiny, you're not going to make it up the mountain. And even if you do, it's going to be very tough and you might not make it, but it's worth going for it. You study your ancestors because they inspire you. Okay, you look at all the great heroic achievers and how religious they were. I'm going to show some of them in a moment. They're super religious. The greatest people who ever lived were super religious. Okay, look at Isaac Newton. Look at Johann Sebastian Bach. Look at Michelangelo. It goes on and on. James Clerk Maxwell, etc., etc. Okay, I studied tons of these guys. The greatest scientists, achievers, artists, etc., super religious. Okay, and to see it as your destiny. So I say it's my destiny to try to be the best I can as a doctor, a scientist, a teacher, a writer, okay, and a collector of the wisdom of mankind to share it with the younger generations before it's all lost and deleted off the internet. Okay, so those things inspire me. All right, and that's good. You need something to inspire you. It gives me something to do. And then even the higher you get up on the mountain, the wind blows hardest at the top. So it's never going to be a party if you want to be a party, because that's the other thing too. I get criticized a lot by all these wimpy people on the internet saying, why are you so aggressive? Why are you so assertive? Because if I wasn't, I wouldn't be able to climb the damn mountain. You have to be, okay? And, you know, I wish I could be mild-mannered like Esselstyn or something, but I can't, okay? All right, now here's a Yerkes-Dodson curve of stress and performance. So basically, you need a little bit of stress to energize you, to motivate you, to get you pumped up. But you don't want too much stress because it can stress you out and get you to lock up and be uptight. So this is called, you want to get in the peak performance zone. And the way I recommend doing this is by simplifying your life, by avoiding unnecessary stress that wastes your time, that angers you for no reason. You just keep your focus on what really matters, what your big goals are, going after that. Because that way you'll have more energy. Also, that way when the inevitable stress hits, when the trolls and the scumbags are trying to knock you off your path to climb Success Mountain, you've kept all your energy ready for those moments so that when they come, you can absorb the hit and hang on to that rope and keep climbing, okay? Because the hits are going to come. They're going to attack you. They're going to try to knock you down. They're going to try to knock you into the river that washes you down to the mountain, the bottom of the mountain, okay? It's going to happen. It always does. So you have to be ready for it. And that's another thing. I know a lot of people who had a tremendous amount of talent, but they were like atheists. And when the hard knock came, they just quit. They gave up. They dropped out. They became alcoholics. They became drug addicts. They committed suicide. They couldn't freaking take it, okay? And you're going to have some people betray you, okay? You're going to have some people fuck you over that promise to help you. You're going to have people, I've seen people who referred to me, friends of a friend, and they still screwed me over. So you just have to accept it in life. Things are not always going to be fair. Now I'm going to show you a couple other ways to look at these paths in life. I meant to show you the next slide first. We'll come back to this one. Okay, here is the hero's journey. This comes out of Joseph Campbell's work. Joseph Campbell wrote the hero's journey, and it became very famous for the movie Star Wars and for other movies, okay? Basically, the hero's born at home sweet home, the local place, the ordinary world, childhood and adolescence, splendor in the grass, everything is marvelous. And then he gets a call to action, where for some reason, he's pulled out of his joyful childhood, his innocence, and he must go and fight the demon or something, okay? He departs to travel to an unknown world. He makes mistakes. He screws up. He's maybe laziness. He doesn't understand the significance of his mission. He has losses. He has failures. New enemies come and they knock him down. He's in the belly of the whale. And then he's in the gutter, half dead, like Dryden. I am not dead. I am wounded. I am not slain, only wounded. I shall lie a while and bleed a little, then rise to fight again. So now he's in the pit, the gutter. He has a loss of hope. He's almost asking himself, should I continue the dark night of the soul? And he has a new revelation, a new hope. And he says, well, maybe if I try again, maybe if I do things a little bit differently, maybe if I get some coaching and some advice, find a good teacher, a good mentor, if I study my ancestors, maybe I can figure out a way to make some success. He looks like Adler's inferiority theory and principle. You take your frustration and sadness from failure and you put it into something a little new and different and you try to be successful with it. So instead of just being sad and eating yourself up, you take that energy and frustration and you refocus it. That's a very good thing to do. Like I used to cry when I was by myself all the time when I was in college because I knew I'd let myself get injured by coming back too soon and I screwed up my wrestling career. Okay, I should have been an All-American or national champion, so I was very sad about that. But I refocused that energy in becoming a better student, okay? And then I like the Dabrowski theory. Dabrowski was a Polish psychiatrist who basically said something along the same lines. He worked a lot with gifted kids, and he said, you'll have a setback, a failure, a disappointment. And instead of just becoming dejected and giving up, you say, all right, I'm going to take all my sadness, frustration, and refocus it. And that's what you do. Okay, so what you're basically doing is instead of lying at the bottom in the gutter, you bounce out of it, okay? And then there's always going to be ups and downs. It's always going to be 2 steps up, 1 step back. 2 steps up, 1 step back. Sometimes it's going to be 2 steps up, bam, 3 steps back. But you have to get up and keep going, okay? And then, like in the movie, there'll be a big battle and often an initial loss, a return battle, and hopefully success. The time will come, okay? So a lot of times you're going to get cheated, you're going to get screwed over, and you just have to push back and fight because, like I'll give you a typical example. I should have gone to Harvard for residency, but I went to Northwestern because my mom was sick and I wanted to stay local to help take care of my mother. She was dying of cancer, okay? And, one of the first professors I met over at Northwestern is really famous. I'm not going to say his name, but he's super world famous. As a matter of fact, a lot of people I know will know probably from just this metaphor I'm giving you, the story I'm telling you. He says to me when I first walk into the program, he goes, "Oh, we got a Puerto Rican here, our first Puerto Rican." He goes, "I better, make sure I tighten up the hubcaps on my car in the parking lot." And I knew he was just joking. And my attitude was like, "Go ahead, pal. You don't know me, pal. I'm going to be the best resident out of all the residents in my age group. I'm going to be the best resident out of all the residents in this entire program from first year to senior year. And I'm going to try to be the best resident that has ever set foot in this program." And I was. So that was kind of my attitude. So basically when somebody insults me and tries to degrade me, my attitude is like, "You just watch me, pal. I'm going to work so hard and I'm so good and so talented. You're going to be amazed at what I do." Okay, so I wanted to be the best in every way you could be good as a resident. Number one, how well you do in the test. Number two, how well you do in presentation and conference when you have to answer questions in front of the group. Number three, how well do you do doing procedures, taking care of the patients. Number four, how well do you interact with the other services? How well do you perform all the components of your job? Okay. All right, so now I'm going to go to the earlier slide, and I'm going to show you a little bit what it's like for a doctor. How do you become a great doctor? First of all, you got to start at the bottom like everyone does, low man on the totem pole, grind through, college and grad school. And when you first get introduced to all this stuff, it seems pretty neat, pretty cool. You can imagine rapid progress, doing all these wonderful things. You see your role model, you go shadow them and follow them around. You see the highlights on TV, it's fun, it's inspiring. But then you hit the long grind, basic science, pre-med classes, med school classes. And, you finally get through all that, then you start doing third-year clerkships, fourth-year elective clerkships, and you do have some fun, and you learn something, and there's some ups and downs, but you get more of a real-world taste of clinical experience. But then you hit the grind again, late residency, fellowship, just showing up early, working all day, being totally exhausted later on, trying to make junior partner, junior professor, etc. And you basically come to make a choice. And you say, you know what? If I just conform and do exactly what I'm told, keep my mouth shut, I'll make decent money the rest of my life. And yeah, I'm going to be bored. It's going to be tedious. But I'll have decent money and things will be okay. And that's what 99.9% of people do. And it's a reasonable choice in medicine. Just yield a pill, send a bill, follow the standard protocol. You'll make your money. Your patients will never get better, but too bad. That's just how it is. But the other path is to try to do something exciting. Every day, try to learn a little something. Just a little something, even just a few things. When you get a tough case, don't just grind it out and go by the textbook. Look it up on the internet, try to learn something new, call your buddies, call some other expert. Try to keep soaking in more information. Keep reading little things. You get a free 15 minutes, read something. Watch an intelligent video. Bring a book with you in your backpack to work. Read that book for a little while. Every day, push yourself to learn. If you don't push yourself to learn, you kind of become a Gomer doc and you start going down. You don't ever stay the same. You're either going up or you're going down in your knowledge. You pay the price, though, for looking stuff up and trying to learn. It means you're going to take more time. It's going to slow you down, and you're going to go home a little later, and that can wear you down when you're already working long hours to get your sleep. But you'll keep on improving, all right? And you're also going to piss some people off. If you try to improve things in conventional medicine, their attitude is like, we're running an assembly line here that's making a lot of money, and we don't want you interrupting it. Okay? So you're not going to be welcome. The other thing, too, is like I figured out all kinds of things in other doctors' fields. And so I contacted some of these doctors. Hey, you guys want to invite me to speak? I figured out this part of your field. I figured out this part of your field. I can tell you something. They never want you to speak because you're an embarrassment to them. If me coming from my field, I master the field that those guys have been working in for 40 years and they can't figure it out, and I can figure it out in 6 months, they don't like that. They're humiliated. They're embarrassed. Believe me, ego is a lot more important than the patients, okay? Way more, 1,000 times more, okay? I've never been invited by anybody to speak in front of conventional doctors since I became a genius and figured out all this other stuff. Back when I did conventional stuff, they might want me to show my new surgical technique or something because it was part of the expected program. Like I could say, here's a better way to puncture the common femoral artery. Here's a better way to traverse an obstructed artery, obstructed vein, etc. That was welcome because that was just part of the usual stuff. Okay, so we're continuing here with the scholar's journey, all right? Okay, well, we already went through this slide. And then, you want to look at some of your ancestors. So here's the great Pericles giving his speech the funeral oration from the Peloponnesian War by Thucydides, and he's pointing up to Athena and the Acropolis and the Parthenon in Athens, okay? And you can be inspired by, look at that opening line of Thucydides. My history has been composed to be an everlasting possession, not the showpiece of an hour. This book is written not for the applause of the moment, but as a gift to mankind for all time. That's the way you create great achievements. When you say, I'm going to do what's good, what's best, what's right, even if I get screwed for it, ostracized, even if I don't make any money. Because usually you won't. When you do something really good, you break the paradigm and you piss off the people who control the paradigm. They got the money and the power, and they're going to be pissed off at you, so they're going to push you down. They're not going to help you up. They're not going to promote you. Whenever you hear somebody getting promoted for an achievement, it's because they're making money for a corporation, typically. Okay, and I remember, the great achievements of the past, things like Aeneas, carrying his father Anchises out of burning Troy, okay? And that's the idea of, right now, the Western civilization is burning. It's being destroyed, okay? Let's be honest. It's you-know-what has been opened up to let you-know-who inside to destroy it, to kill it, to destroy it, to burn it down. Okay, so I say to myself, I'll at least make these videos to preserve the history of Western civilization. In my quote books, I'll preserve the quotes. In my art books, I'll preserve the art. In my culture book, I'll preserve the culture. So the few people, the small percentage, less than 1%, they'll at least have the knowledge to carry it on so the truth doesn't die. So I want to try to do that, okay? And, the same thing in medicine. All the greatest doctors, they're not in any of the books. You won't find McDougall, Esselstyn, Kempner, Burkitt, any of those guys in the books, okay? Not a single one of them. Gregory Sloop, Richard Moore, all these guys who did the top-notch achievements that saved more lives than any of the conventional stuff. None of them are in the books. So anyways, I want to be with these guys. I want to be with Aeneas. I want to be with Thomas Aquinas. I want to be with Aristotle, the people who really did great things. And, I like these peak moments, this idea, like Ayn Rand had said, the poet, the historian who tells you how things could be. They're greater. They are the ones who show you how things ought to be. They put in your mind's eye this idea, like where this is coming from is a quote of Aristotle. Aristotle had said the poets, as in like Homer, for example, was more important than the historians, if you will, like Herodotus, because they tell you not just how things were, but how they ought to be. Okay, that was the point of it, okay? They give you a goal to aspire to, okay? And Ayn Rand described it as a cognitive lifeline. So I'll say to myself, I might be surrounded by nasty, mean people that are trying to beat me down, but I know how to climb out of the cave, and that's what I'm trying to do. I know what utopia is all about. I know how to aspire towards it. I know the great ages of mankind, the Greeks in Athens, in classical Greece, the Italian Renaissance, the golden age of Europe in the 1800s. And I want to aspire to do something great like they did in those times, like the Catholic revival in England in the 1800s with Cardinal Newman and Augustus Welby Pugin and all the other people who did great things. Okay, and I also notice as I've gotten more experience, a lot of times the greatest achievements, they come from something simple. You could cure more people with the Adam and Eve diet than you can with all the technology put together. Sorry about my voice there. I'm almost done, so I'll just finish it up. And then, like I said, the greatest people who ever lived, they were devoutly religious. Michelangelo built, made the Pietà, painted the Sistine Chapel. Johann Sebastian Bach, greatest composer who ever lived, says, all my work is to the glory of God. Michelangelo, I saw the angel in the marble and I sculpted until I set him free. I put all my hope in Christ. Isaac Newton, every one of my scientific discoveries, the greatest scientist who ever lived, he says, was made as an answer to a prayer. He spent more time studying the Bible than he did doing science. And you'll find that it's like that. I've written an entire book about scientists and who they were, and I'm like, you'll be amazed. 35 craters on the moon are named after a Jesuit priest. They're way, 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 way more religious than is widely recognized. Okay, and look at all the great authors. The best novels ever written. Christmas Carol, Charles Dickens. Les Miserables, Victor Hugo. Brothers Karamazov, Dostoevsky. Quo Vadis by Henry Sienkiewicz. They're all intensely Christian, because Christianity gets the story right, that we're inevitably fated to die, but we find our cross and we do the best we can, then we redeem ourselves and live a good life, okay? That's the best you could do. That's the best you could do. Say, what is the best I could do? And I shall do it. And I shall try to live and try to do something great like my ancestors did, okay? They made the best buildings, the Gothic cathedrals, the best windows, the best sculptures, the best paintings, the best music, the best literature, the best hospitals, the best homeless shelters, the best universities, the best drama, the best theater, you name it, the best poetry. All right, so here's Thomas Aquinas. He had a vision. He went before Christ. He said, I'm trying, God, but I just feel like I'm not really doing as well as I should. And God said, Thomas, you're doing good. And I love Thomas Aquinas because he was like the Aristotle of his time, summarized all the good knowledge of his time. Okay, and I love this quote too. It came from a YouTube channel called Inside the Score. It said, resources are the enemy of creativity. And what that meant was, you're never going to have enough time. You're never going to have everything you want. You just get working. And you'd be like Robert Pirsig when he wrote Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. He was working full time. He just went to bed early, and then he got up at 4 a.m. every morning so he could write. And he wrote his masterpiece book, Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. Okay, and I remember these guys, like my two coaches, Dave Schultz and Mark Schultz, world and Olympic champion. They were the wrestling coaches at Stanford. And this guy was fat, weak, and slow. And man, he became the greatest wrestler in the world. And likewise for this guy too. This guy had real poor VO2 max, didn't have good oxygen lungs, couldn't do well on a test of VO2 max. And what he would do is he would just wear sunglasses a week before a competition or 2 weeks before a competition, would not speak to anybody. And he's just psyching himself up. When he would come out on the mat, man, he was like a wild animal. He had so much energy. That's where he got it from. I saw it. I'm not just saying this. I watched him do that. Not speak to anybody for 2 weeks and come out on the mat and just beat the crap out of a bunch of Russian former world champions. Okay, Maximum Achievement by Brian Tracy. That's the right way to get yourself psyched up. Say, I know I can do it. I know I can do it. And prepare yourself for big achievements. You have to do that if you want to achieve something big. Okay, so here it is again, and here's my little drawing here, and I'll get out of the way. But this is how I see it in my mind's eye. You're just this little nobody trying to climb Success Mountain, the scholar's journey to greatness, to become the best in your field, the best in the world, to head towards the cross, your destiny as you see that God has planned for you. And you're going to have all these competitors, corporations, scumbags, trolls, bots trying to knock you over into the river that's going to pull you down to the ground, into the gutter. So you have to just say, I know what I'm doing is right, I know what I'm doing is good, and I shall stick to it until the last red blood cell in my body, to the last heartbeat in my body. And that's the way it's going to be. And if I fail, I fail, but I won't fail because I didn't try. And I think I got a good chance to succeed. So anyways, that's how it is. That's a scholar's journey. I hope they found that helpful.